We're live with the Star Wars Legends podcast, and I have to make an apology why these haven't been coming up on Spreaker. Our top 10 EU authors list will not upload to Spreaker. I have to split it in half and release it in two parts. It's too long. I guess that I shouldn't have named every author that wrote something half decent.
Yes, your top 35.
I couldn't. It's Sophie's choice. I just say take me, you know. So that's the delay on that, and why there's been so many Live and Let's Discuss episodes and not Legends episodes coming out. So anyway, welcome to the show, Magneto, Alex.
It's Magneto, but yeah.
Magneto.
Yeah.
I say Magneto because I always read a T. I'm like Matt Wilkins, where he just makes up words.
Yeah.
For
a year.
When Matt and I first became friends and we talked all the time before he had kids, I started picking up all of how he says things wrong. And our friend Tristan's like, Jeremy, you're starting to talk like Matt.
So you talk to Matt enough.
Yeah, Magneto.
Yes.
Magneto.
Or Magneto, it's fine. Just there's no neat.
Can I just call you Alex?
Yeah, you can.
There's
That's
too
fine.
many Alexes. There's like 50 Alexes.
In the Discord servers, at least. There's a Brit Alex. He's British, and then there's me, who's not British. So, but I'm the best Alex, objectively speaking.
For long-term viewers, there's another Alex too.
There's an even other one, but I'm the best one.
No. Oh yes, I do remember. He's good. It's good to weed when you're angry at someone, you know. You're too young for that one, Alex.
Maybe. Probably.
You're too young for that shit show, because I don't think there was a Legends podcast when that happened.
I think he may have appeared on one Legends podcast when
he was not allowed on here.
He was not? Okay.
I don't think he was. I was so irritated with him after.
See, he had so many
Unabomber on one of.
He had so many swings. You know, he was up and then he would go down, and I can't remember like where in the timeline of events he was when Legends podcast happened, if he was on his upswing or downswing.
He used to comment on the early episodes. I don't know. I haven't heard from him in years.
I haven't either.
In fact, I thought you were him, Alex. Like, why is Edward made another fucking account?
Remember the Google Doc? No, it wasn't a Google Doc. Remember, we had a list of his 20 or so known aliases that he would.
I think it was a Google Doc. Yeah,
because he kept making.
We had to remove him from a Facebook group, and it took hours
because he had the curse of.
He had
curse of having a common name.
No. It wasn't. So his name actually wasn't Alex.
Okay.
But he had several of his alt accounts were all variants of Alex. But he had 20 different alt accounts at least that we were aware of.
And he would some of them would be him. There was one where he was dressed as a woman.
Okay.
He was a unique character, and when he was on his good days, he would just fight with other people.
Okay.
He once said, "You obviously haven't heard of Chi." Say Leland Chi, which I want to put on a T-shirt.
Memories. Oh no, has Jeremy dropped?
I think so.
This is the second time in Legends podcast history that Jeremy has had the bad internet.
He's back. He's back.
I'm back. Yeah, my internet connection is really piss poor at the moment. I'm not
Remember
sure.
that? So is mine. We'll probably have him being frozen or me speaking like C-3PO. So,
because the joke is, it was usually my internet that was bad, right? I was the one that always dropped, and then one day Jeremy dropped, and I thought I had dropped, so I just stopped talking and I was quiet while I was trying to work on my thing, and then I realized we were still live, and I was just sitting here quietly for 10 minutes and be oh wait, I thought I dropped. No, Jeremy dropped. Oh, this is awkward.
Yeah, there's people commenting and stuff. It's hello everyone. I'm just throwing it out there. So Dylan's here too. I forgot to mention that he was here on his
I'm always here.
throne.
Remember
You're not
when
always here. There's been at least one episode you weren't on. It's when we had
correct.
Ryan Kinnell on. Yeah, that was a wild time. Anyway, so Alex, how'd you get into the EU?
Oh, that's a whole story. So I grew up, with the prequels, and I didn't really know about the EU because I was kind of young, and I knew about like the Force Unleashed. I didn't know it was like connected to anything. I just thought it was a video game, and I played it, and then the Lego games, and then I saw the sequel movie. So actually, one moment, I apologize. I have to do something.
Okay. So, anyway, I'm going to say hello to everyone here. We'll start with
Which German? You'll have to be more specific. They're like
Noah's not going to wake up for this. Are you fucking kidding me? Where's the German? Marcel, you know better. Noah doesn't wake up on time for the Legends podcast anymore. Plus, he has like a family thing going on because we were supposed to record some Live and Let's Discuss for me in the morning and for him in the evening. And that's not happening this week. It'll have to happen next week. Maxwell started reading Wraith Squadron.
Excellent. I hope you enjoy it. Some of probably the best Bantam series, in my opinion. Not probably, definitely the best Bantam series.
Marcel, yes, you do know better than to expect Noah to show up unless it has to be at the 2-hour mark for him to show up, and then he derails everything.
Apologies about that. My brother's in Connecticut right now, and so he calls me and will be like, "Hey, I'm doing stuff. How are you?" I'm like, "I'm fine," but I said I'm kind of doing something. He's like, "Oh, okay. Guess you don't love me." There was thunderstorms going on. I was kind of scared. I was like, "I'm sorry," and then I was like, "I gotta go though."
So anyway, about your EU discovery.
So I saw episode 7, and I never seen a Star Wars film in theaters because I was 4 when episode 3 came out. To first perspective on how young I am. And so,
Jesus, I was 4 when The Phantom Menace came out. It was the first movie I ever saw in the theater.
Yeah, and I thought it was okay. I mean, Han Solo being Han Solo as he was in that movie kind of bugged me because it's like, what? Episode 6, he got a family, and now his family is gone? Okay. Whatever, though, it's Star Wars in theaters. That's cool. And then episode 8 came out, and the way Luke was portrayed really pissed me off. There's also other stuff. I won't get too much into it because I try not to hate on stuff unless I feel it's really warranted. But, there's
Bounty Hunter Wars?
Trilogy? Yeah, like Bounty Hunter Wars, absolute garbage. I'll say that for all time and space. Thinking of that separately. But, anyway.
No one's never read it.
Yeah, well, that's good for Noah. He's actually lucky. But I'm sure he'll like it, though, because he's German.
Noah's read it. Dylan hasn't read it.
Oh, Dylan hasn't read it?
I haven't.
Oh, okay.
That's
like the only Bantam trilogy he's not read.
Oh, well, you're not missing out on much.
I've never
I'll
finished
give you the
hard merchandise. So.
I'll give you the hard cap of it and like little. So Boba Fett wakes up. Okay. Then we get the bounty hunter stuff from like after episode 4. That's kind of interesting with Bosk's father and the Bounty Hunters Guild. That's great. And Zizor's scheming. And then the next book, he's doing stuff in modern day. You don't care because it's boring. And then Zizor continues to reiterate the same thing he's been talking about in the previous book again and again and again to like Vader and Palpatine. And then he also decides at the end of the book, I could have used Boba Fett, but now I want to kill Boba Fett. So then the third book, he tries to kill Boba Fett until like some random officer on his ship is like, okay, but like Boba Fett could be useful. So like you shouldn't kill him. And then Zizor's like, I never thought about that. And then he doesn't kill him. And then Boba Fett completes his mission, and that's the end of the trilogy.
Most of it's in the past.
Yeah, most of it's in the past, which is
You didn't even-
it's interesting the first one, but then it's just kind of boring in the second one.
Well, nothing
both
happens.
that's the problem. I would
the
rather be
slave
pissed
ship
off at a
is-
story than have nothing happen.
Oh my god, slave ship! Nothing happens. They steal they steal Bosk's ship in
Yeah.
the present day. Oh, Kuat does something at the end.
Yeah.
You even mentioned that
Yeah, he's there.
The only
He's
kind
the
of
thing.
he
Yeah.
occasionally does something interesting.
Yeah, and there's a spider dude that's kind of cool.
Oh
He
yeah,
says
the
things.
collector.
Yeah, he's cool, I guess. But ultimately, you know, for all the stuff that Noah talks about and other people have talked about hating, I would rather hate something with a passion than feel absolute nothing every day I get off work and spend my time feeling like I'm still working as I get home to read that trilogy. It's just boring. I would take hatred over boredom any day. But derailed. So episode 8.
Mm-hmm.
Saw Luke, didn't like it. Saw Poe like arguing with the pink hair girl. That annoyed me. So I was like, I'm done with Star Wars. But I did think Kylo Ren was kind of cool. He was like the only part I kind of liked about that movie. And so I looked up stuff about Kylo Ren on YouTube, and I found Geeks and Gamers video with Ryan Kennel talking about Jason Solo. And I have no idea what that is. I have no clue what he's talking about. So I watched the video, like, that's interesting. He mentioned the expanded universe. So then I look up the expanded universe on YouTube, and I find Matt Wilkins' entire playlist. I think at that point, he was somewhere after the Dark Times he'd gotten to already, something like that.
He hit Rebellion era.
Or he'd hit Rebellion era by that point then. And then I just binged all the way through and then watched every upload as it came out. And that's how I learned about the expanded universe and got involved with it. And then COVID happened, and that's when I started reading it, actually. Before that, I was just collecting it and buying it.
So let me ask you this. Did you find out about us because we were in Matt's expanded universe for 2 episodes?
I don't think I remembered you guys. I would watch all of his streams and stuff, and you would sometimes come on. But then I'd also looked up expanded universe stuff in general for other stuff, just for like reviews besides his. And your video came up for like Mall Lockdown. So I watched your review in your basement when you were clean shaven, talking about Star Wars.
Yeah,
I
had the studio that burned down. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I subscribed to you then with that. Dylan is always pops up on Matt's channel eventually. Like if he's not there for a while, he'll eventually pop up in a stream or something. So that's how I found out about Dylan. And then I found about Twin Sons Foundation and all that through Matt Wilkins live streams and stuff. And Brian Borg would come on, or Dylan would talk about the foundation and what they were doing. So that's how I learned about all that stuff. Basically, everything centers around Matt Wilkins, and everything gets branched out from there. It's my understanding of everything.
Okay, that's fair. Probably a lot of people's understanding at this point.
Yeah. So
he's the only one who's really covered everything.
Yeah.
On video.
Well, I'm almost done. I should. After I get through Crucible and the Legacy comics again, I should have gotten through everything that I can, or most things. I don't really review source books, but I read
check out some of the source books. They're worth your time. I was just talking to Geeks Attic about this because he got confused. He's reading Dark Empire, and he got confused about some things. I'm like, oh, they talk about it in the source book.
Well, I've read the short stories and stuff that come from those source books. Like I've looked those up on the Star Wars Timeline.net, and I'll download the PDF and I'll find the specific short stories and stuff within them.
Okay.
But then I'll check out. Like I won't read the rest of it. But just because I was mainly focused on the story aspect and trying to review all that. So
the other ones that are seldom touched are the Essential Guide series. Because I think we were talking about this on one of the Discords. I can't remember how in the Clone Wars novelization, Karen Traviss depicts Togruta and Ahsoka's as if they're we're very cat-like, and people were wondering where she got it from. Well, she got it from the New Essential Guide to Characters, because in they don't specifically say Togrutas are cat-like, but in the text when you read it, it mentions that they do a lot of things that cats also do, and as Karen Traviss would read those guides and use those in writing, or at least I think that's where she got it from.
That would make sense. She was well versed in EU.
Yeah. for all the complaints about her, she definitely did her homework.
Well, I do feel somewhat bad for Karen Traviss. She got the short end of the stick for Clone Wars and what she established. She wrote the most Clone Wars material.
She did.
Novel wise. Not comic wise.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think I misspoke. It wasn't the New Essential Guide to Characters. It was New Essential Guide to Alien Species.
Okay.
That makes more sense. But
we all know that Ahsoka is the greatest character that has ever existed.
Obviously.
Hail our Lord and Savior Dave Filoni.
She's going to fight Thrawn. It's very important.
And we had to cast Ewan McGregor's new wife as Hera, even though that's like the worst choice of casting. It's just, I don't know. I don't give a shit. I'm not gonna watch Ahsoka the show. Why would I do that to myself when I can watch Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny? Oh, I went and saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's fine. None of the jokes work.
Imagine
I laugh at two different types of things in an Indiana Jones movie. I laugh at the jokes, and I laugh at the horrible death. That shish kebab to the chest that Chinese gangster gets in Temple of Doom is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I haven't seen the movie. I've heard all those spoilers though, because I don't care to see it. But one of the things that made me go, okay, well, I don't want to watch it is regardless of how you feel about Mutt in the Kingdom of Crystal Skull, right? Like it gave Indy a kid, and then established that Marion or whatever from Raiders is kind of definitive love interest for him. And then as far without spoiling, I guess, for other people, some things are learned, and I'm like, that's a similar thing though to like Han. Why can't he just be happy? Why does he have to be depressed all the time?
Here's the thing with Indiana Jones. If you watch the Indiana Jones show and you have really old Indy, like 80-year-old Indy, he admits in an episode he has a ton of kids with different women.
That's fair. That's fair.
In fact, there's an episode where his daughter is taking care of him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
so he gets a happy ending, I guess, in the end. Then, in the really, really old ending.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. They reshot the ending. It was so blatant because no one liked the ending. But James Mangold, I think is the director's name. He directed Logan. He cannot direct comedy. He's just terrible at it. So he gives Phoebe Waller-Bridge a bunch of comedy that it's cringy, but it could have worked a little bit at least once, and you don't get a single laugh out of it. She's the proverbial comic relief, and it doesn't work. There are some great Nazi deaths in the beginning. He does throw someone under a truck. They actually do get run over. So we're a step above Kingdom of the Crystal Skull blowing into the blowgun to reverse the dart into someone's mouth, which is the only direct Indy murder. There's a bunch of Indy murders in the beginning, and then he's a feeble old man and he can't do anything, which is kind of interesting. It's like, it's part, what do we do with what do we do different from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? And it's also, what did Kingdom of the Crystal Skull do right? So, like, if you combine these two movies into one, I think it would be pretty good. But it's well acted. It's fine. Go see it if you want to, or stream it on Disney Plus before Disney buys out Hulu. So that's my review. It's fine. It's in continuity with everything else. Indiana Jones. That was the shocking thing. I was saying that before the stream. I was so pleased that it didn't contradict anything. least not that I've noticed. So, yeah. Anyway, let's talk some Star Wars. Let's talk some Star Wars video games. We did a video game episode years ago. Dylan and I ranked our favorite Star Wars games. But in recent years, we've had a lot of Nintendo Switch re-releases of Star Wars games. EA released 2 horrible games. There was a Star Wars flight simulator no one played, bunch of bad app games, and Jedi rolling over. Well, I'm sorry, Fallen Order. All you do is roll around on the ground. It's like let's take Jedi Outcast and make it a rolling simulator.
The only thing I liked about that, I just found it funny because Mark Hamill played in Star Wars first, and then later on would go on to voice the Joker. And then this guy, he was in Shameless, and then he went on to the terrible Gotham show, but he was the best part of the terrible Gotham show. Where
was he the Joker?
Well, see, there's a thing about this. The Gotham show was not allowed to use Joker because for some reason, it's kind of a similar thing to George Lucas and, all the things with having to kill Anakin Solo. Where it's like, well, we have Joker always in the movies, so we don't want to confuse people with Joker in a TV show. So you can't use Joker in the TV show, but everybody wanted to use Joker. So they came up with a character named Jerome, who was only meant to pop up in one episode, and he was meant to be like this, like, being in the future. That's you died, but everybody loved him. And so they had to keep finding excuses to bring him back. They even killed him off, and then they brought him back to life. And it was pretty clear at that point, they can't use the name. They can't say this is Joker. But Jerome, for all intents and purposes, with no makeup or anything, this is your show's Joker. And then they even went so far as to kill him off definitively. And there's a twin trope where they had Jeremiah, who was allowed to actually wear like a suit and have makeup, but still wasn't the Joker. So they just kept finding ways to push around this thing that they weren't supposed to do while obviously doing it in every season. And I think he was the show. The show sucks, but he was great. And he went on to be in Star Wars, so I just thought that was funny.
I got about 20% of that. Because
I got the gist of it. It's fine.
Okay.
I think it works better. It's about what Gotham the show deserves for talking, to be fair. Remember they wanted Jada Pinkett Smith to be a gangster named Fish.
Oh, she's Fish Mooney. She was basically Penguin's boss before he became the one in charge.
Yeah.
Also, Penguin's a great part of that show, but everything else besides Jerome/Jeremiah and Penguin suck.
Mm-hmm. It also has the worst bat suit I think I've ever seen.
Oh, God. That was a terrible finale to the entire show. That was so bad. It looked so bad. I was so disappointed. I was like, you guys can try a little bit harder. It's the final episode. But they just...
Why bother? Why bother? It's a DC show. They always fumble it at the end. But anyway, let's get into some Star Wars games. So I want to throw this one. This is not a complete... What I wanted to talk about are the Star Wars games that have not gotten a remaster or a re-release in more than a decade.
Which is all of the EU games, because the EU got discontinued almost a decade ago.
Also, they cannot be PC ports because Steam has pretty much all the Star Wars games that have been released for PC, and they have taken fairly decent care of them, with the exception of Dark Forces 2 and some of the flight simulator games. Those don't seem to run well on Windows 10 from what I've tried to run. So anyway, I want to throw this one out there. It's not an official game, but why on earth has Force Unleashed 2's DLC not been released on PC? Like, come on, let's just do that. We have the Ultimate Sith edition of Force Unleashed on Steam. Let's get this Force Unleashed 2 DLC on there so I can throw Chewbacca and Han Solo around and fight Leia, who looks like Bastila. So anyway, So I wanted to spread this out to also LucasArts games as a whole, because LucasArts did more than just Star Wars. They did some Indiana Jones. They did all of Indiana Jones. They've done the first video game I ever played, Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Did Thrillville, that sort of thing. So, Dylan, what are you thinking?
The one that immediately came to mind was Star Wars The Clone Wars, the 2002 vehicle combat game. I think this needs I think it's a very good game, and I think the graphics hold up fairly, all right for what it is. And I think the gameplay for the vehicle sections also holds up pretty well. There could be some tweaks, but the parts of the game where you are on foot are atrocious. And I think if you were going to remaster a game, that would be a good candidate for one that actually probably needs a remaster to fix some of the flaws. And also, although I don't like it typically when remasters mess with the actual story of the game, but I would, in this case, as it is a bit of a continuity error, I would like some more explanation as to when exactly Ulla Qel-Droma fought or taught the Jedi how to beat the Dark Reaper, because it seems like it happened after the events of his duel with his brother, when he lost, when Nomi took away his Force abilities and he was exiled. But again, that doesn't make sense, because why would the events of redemption have taken place if Ulic had already in exile proven his worth to the Order by teaching them how to beat the Dark Reaper? So it must have happened before then. I don't know. Just clear up that continuity error and then make the on foot sections better.
Or he taught Vima via Force Ghost.
Maybe.
That's a possibility. I don't know. That Tales of the Jedi series, everyone's teaching each other via Force Ghost or Sith Holocron. It's just how that one worked. Alex, what are you thinking?
I'm technically getting a remake of it, but I would under Lucasfilm pre-2014, with none of the controversies and everything. I really want Knights of the Old Republic remake where it looks more like Mass Effect, or and just looks better and plays better, because it's not aged the best, and that's what I the most prefer to see, because it's the most story heavy out of all of them. But so that would be my go-to. But there's also that old game that I think would see modern graphics, the Salmon Road. I remember that back in the day, and I would love to see that in they made a what was it? What's it called? Ratchet and Clank. They made a remake a couple years ago, and it was nice and played decently. So I would like to see that for Sam Max.
Okay. Here's one I got. Not a Star Wars game. I do have a few Star Wars games, but I want to see Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings get what I really like to see is them to release what they were going to release for PS3 and Xbox 360. But that never got finished because they poured all their resources into Force Unleashed instead. But it had similar physics to the Force Unleashed. So I would like to see the Wii port be ported to Switch, or better yet, the PSP with the controls of the PSP port. because I don't want to do motion controls with the whip. They were terrible in the Wii version, and I don't want to deal with that with the Switch controller. I don't want to deal with that. Yeah, staff came.
Okay.
Plus, it was packaged with, when you beat the game, you unlocked Indiana Jones: The Fate of Atlantis, the point and click game, which you can get on Steam for really cheap, and it works fine. But anyway, Dylan, another one.
This is going to sound weird, but classic Battlefront 2, if nothing else, because currently the only way you can play the 2 DLC maps of Renvar and Bespin is to play a modded version of like the one that's available on Steam. So I would really like them to re-release it with, again, that Xbox deals, because if you don't know, if you had the Xbox version of Battlefront 2, there was a DLC that had Renvar and Bespin. They were pretty much the same exact maps that were on Battlefront 1.
Yeah.
But they also had heroes and villains on them, so that you didn't have to just play heroes and villains on Mos Eisley. And they also added Kit Fisto and
Asajj Ventress.
Asajj Ventress. Yeah,
I was going to talk about this too.
Yeah. So, again, the fact that, like, and the only way you had that is if you had the original Xbox and you had Xbox Live, which not a lot of people had, even back then. Xbox Live didn't really become, I mean, it was big in the Xbox scene, but the Xbox Live didn't really become like the industry standard, or online gaming for consoles didn't really become like the industry standard until the 360 generation. So a lot of people didn't have it. And then the people that did have it, when the Xbox servers got taken down, like, if you still had your copy of it, you could still play it on single player, but that's like very few people have it. So again, the only way to play those maps is on PC. So I'd love to see a console report of it that has all those DLCs, so that people can play how very few people were able to play the full experience of Battlefront 2.
All right. Alex, what's another one you got?
Man, I mean, I'm unable to enjoy a lot of the old X-Wing and TIE Fighter games that came out. They're just too dated for me. So if they could remake those, I would probably be more interested in them. Because I know they made like a canon type game, but I'm not going to play a game. So it could be good, could be bad. I have no opinion on that. But as for the Legends games, if they could remake those, I'd be really interested in playing those. Because one of the aspects of like the books I've never been able to get into is ship combat. Because I just don't care. But if I was able to actually play out and enjoy that, maybe I could get into it whenever the books.
Okay. My next one would be, because they'll do these like 2-in-1 games, but I would want a 4-in-1 game. And this is I call it the Super Collection, and for the Nintendo Switch. Super Star Wars, Super Empire Strikes Back, Super Return of the Jedi, Indiana Jones Greatest Adventures. They're all basically the same. They're side-scroller games for the Super Nintendo. I would want a re-release of those, because lately Nintendo's been doing this a lot. You have the Castlevania collection, you got the Contra collection, the TMNT collections. All those came out, and those are like 8-bit, 16-bit games getting re-released for the Switch. I think it'd be perfect to do like a remaster, HD remaster of all those Star Wars games, release them on the Switch. I know that Super Star Wars, you can get it on the PlayStation Store, but I don't want a PlayStation. I want it on my Switch, you know? So that would be my next one. Dylan.
Those are my two big ones. Because when I think of like other games I played, like, because Bounty Hunter recently got a port, I believe.
Yeah, only for the PS4 though. I really want a Switch port personally. I was gonna get to that, but because it was a PlayStation 2 and GameCube game. They never released an Xbox version.
I didn't know about they didn't make an Xbox. Interesting.
Yeah, it was weird.
Maybe
PlayStation has this like
Jedi Starfighter.
Well, Jedi Starfighter got re-released for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like a PC version of it because they did Starfighter for the PC. You can still play that. It's not great to play on the PC unless you have a joystick.
Yeah. Well, I guess like if you were going to turn, I don't know if you could turn one of those into like an actual like flight sim with the proper like head tracking as well.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
And I don't know if those would be good games for it. I think the X-Wing games would probably be better, but you would have to do a lot to like revamp the X-Wing games to turn them into like a proper modern flight simulator, but like keeping like the story aspects of it the same. Shadows hasn't gotten. We lost Alex. Shadows hasn't gotten a port. Has it?
No, the Steam got the rights to it, but it's not like it's remastered at all. It does have controller support. That was shocking.
Interesting.
From what, as I recall, I played through the whole thing back in 2019, so I can't remember if I played through it keyboard and mouse. But I want to say, when it's a third-person shooter, I usually play them with the controller if I can. And that would be the PC version rather than the Nintendo 64 version, which has still images instead of full video cutscenes.
One that could use, actually, now I'm thinking about it, one that could use a proper remaster, and I don't know if they've announced this one, but is a Republic Commando. Because that game,
they did port it to the Switch.
But like a proper remaster, because that game, like, I know on the PC there's like several mods that are like there's like a HUD mod that like gets rid of like it kind of fixes the HUD and like the reticle, and like the reticle mod as well, to make it like more in line with like how the guns actually fire, but like proper mod to fix some of the more egregious errors in that game. Again, the reticle and the honestly the AI of the squad mates, and like how they get stuck sometimes. Like fixing stuff like that would be appreciated.
They did get stuck a lot.
Yeah. That was one. I remember when it came out, they ported it to the Switch, and I was like, that's weird. We're getting Republic Commando on Switch. I don't know if I've played the Switch version. I own it. Alex, what are you thinking?
To be honest, a lot of those older games, like that you mentioned, like the side scrollers and stuff, I've not touched.
Yeah, a lot of these are before your time.
Yeah, that's one of the issues of having me on here. I haven't lived long enough to talk about a lot of these, but I mean, the Jedi like Knight games or the Dark Forces are still playable. They're still playable, but I would prefer like an actual like entire like remake. Like Doom is a video game that Dark Forces basically stole from. It's basically the same game but with Star Wars things. And in 2016 they got, or 2014, I forget, they got this whole new remake of a video game, and it's it retains the same sort of feel, but it's completely different. And I would want something like that for all the Dark Forces games, including when he becomes a Jedi and all that.
Yeah. So. Part of the issue with the Dark Forces games is they were not meant to be played on Windows 10, and they've never been fixed for it. Whereas Steam went out of their way to fix things for Windows 7, they didn't really for Windows 10. So I was talking to you about this earlier, Alex, where Mysteries of the Sith, the expansion for Dark Forces 2, is almost unplayable. It is so hard to get it running. It drives me nuts.
I tried
through all of Mystery of the Sith.
I had to watch a thing on YouTube about it because I couldn't play it when I bought it.
I got Dark Forces 2 to run, barely.
Yeah.
The full motion video, it's like a little square in the middle of the screen, so that doesn't work so well. But like, I could get the game to run.
Yeah. Definitely a better port of that, or an entire it's not going to happen, but a remake of it would be nice too.
I just played through Jedi Academy on the PC, and that wasn't terrible. It had some glitches with saving when I would quick save, it would have issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a fun game. That's probably the best lightsaber combat that's ever been put in a video game.
I agree.
It's a fucking nightmare near the end. Fighting all the acolytes and stuff. I try to force push as many of them off of cliffs as possible, which they make that hard. Which is fair.
Yeah, the game's fun.
Or you ever just throw thermal detonators and hope for the best because they can force push it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, my other one, I think I have a couple more because I feel like we're running out of steam on this, and I have a few cooking here. Specific ones that I want. I want all the X-Wing, all the Rogue Squadron games to be put on Switch. I don't know why they aren't at this point. You can play the first one on PC, but 2 and 3 were GameCube exclusives. And 3 has some issues, mainly the same issues that the first Clone Wars game had, which is when you're on foot, it's horrible. I think Rogue Squadron 3 Rebel Dream, I think is what that one's called. It has some it's really bad. Like there's some missions that like you're playing through Empire Strikes Back as Leia. Like I remember playing through like the Bespin, trying to get to Han. That's horrible. You're either playing as Leia or Chewbacca. I can't remember. That's particularly bad. It's worse than the Clone Wars game. Because at least you had a lightsaber with that. Unless you have a gun and the aiming's not fun. Another one, I wish they port the PSP version of Force Unleashed to the consoles. Because that had a mode where you could play historical levels. Like you can play the Luke Vader duel from Empire Strikes Back. You can play the Geonosis Arena. It's Mace Windu. They've never ported that. They just ported the Wii version, which has some different levels than the standard Force Unleashed version. So that's nice. But the PSP version has even more content that's not in other versions. Trying to think here. For the funnies, the PS1 game Masters of Teräs Käsi, the terrible Mortal Kombat ripoff game, if anyone remembers that.
Yep.
We support that. If you can play Shaq Fu on the Switch, you should be able to play Masters of Teräs Käsi. That's my logic with that.
So this one would be a lot of work, but the two unique PSP Battlefront games, I think, need a console and a PC port.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I just want them to finish Battlefront 3.
Right, but that's as close as we're probably going to get.
So, well, there's the Battlefront 3 Alpha. If you can get that running. That would have been an awesome game. I would have spent many hours playing that. What's another one? Oh, the Obi-Wan Xbox exclusive game. I'm not sure why they haven't ported that.
I have
Because it's
never
bad.
played that game, and I don't know anyone who has.
It's
I've
bad.
never heard anyone talk about it.
It's awful.
So when you know how you use the lightsaber, guess what part of the controller you use for that? Dylan, what's logical? What's the logical button to use on an Xbox controller for the lightsaber?
I have no idea what it actually is.
But where would you assign it?
One of the control sticks.
Oh, yep. It's like the Harry Potter games, the Half-Blood Prince and Order of the Phoenix. You know, the I call them the carpal tunnel games. So you just get a horrible carpal tunnel playing that. Personally, I'd love to see like a 3-pack of the prequel games.
Well, only one of them is good.
What are you talking about? You can murder all the Gungans in Phantom Menace.
Yeah, but Revenge of the Sith is like a decent fighting game.
Oh yeah, no, it's pretty good.
Not even a decent fighting game, an excellent fighting game.
If you have Xbox Live for the new Xbox, you can play Revenge of the Sith.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I discovered that, and I almost bought an Xbox. But I was like, wait, I don't have $500 to just dump on an Xbox Series X.
My brother has one. I'll make him install it. So I can play it.
It's fun. It's not as fluid as other lightsaber fighting games, but you do get the dark side ending to Revenge of the Sith, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan, do you remember the challenge maps on Revenge of the Sith?
I don't.
Well, there's one where you can play as a Magna Guard. There's one you can play as General Grievous. The one I think everyone remembers, though, is that you play as Vader and you fight Obi-Wan in New Hope. So you can recreate that, but with all the crazy powers that you have in that game. So you can kill old Ben. So there's the multiplayer, which works as like a weird Mortal Kombat sort of game. And also there's 3 co-op maps, which are not good. That's like the weakest part.
Oh my gosh. Back to the Clone Wars vehicle combat game, because that has a multiplayer. But that exists
terrible
before like online multiplayer. Because it's like I can imagine those game modes being a lot more fun outside of a split screen experience. Because in split screen they're terrible. Because it's like there's like one mode where like you basically you sit in a zone and then the zone builds up bases and you get like turrets at like stage 1. But the longer you sit in it, like it'll actually send out like AI units to go fight. And I can imagine that being like a total blast in like a 16-player lobby. But like when you're just doing like a 2 or 4 player split screen, it's so terrible. It's not enjoyable at all.
Yeah, I just remember the fighting mode on that.
Mm-hmm.
You're each in a ship. You're in one's in one of the battle droid tanks, and the other one's in like an ATST.
Mm-hmm.
And it controls so terribly. You just run at each other and shoot. It's so bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But,
that game could also use a combat, I think, revamp, just so the enemies aren't bullet sponges. There's like an actual way of taking down a Protodega that's not just like hold the fire and strafe button the whole time.
Yeah. And take out the terrible foot combat.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of Obi-Wan's terrible tongue ring lisp. That was bad. I'm trying to think of any other Star Wars games. What about Yoda stories for the Game Boy Color?
I've never played those.
I've never played it either.
What about Battle Over Coruscant for the Motorola Razr?
What?
Or another good one, the New Droid Army, where you can kill Count Dooku at the end of it. which I think they said, oh, Anakin killed a clone of Dooku, and that's the canon.
What?
Yeah, it was an early Clone Wars game. It was for the Game Boy Advance. It's an isometric, like perspective game. It's not terrible. It's the worst sounds I think I've ever heard from the Game Boy Advance.
The thing is, that's probably not even like the 10th dumbest outcome between a Dooku Anakin fight in the Clone Wars era.
Yeah.
Well, it was everyone till TCW.
Yeah.
It should have remained that, because at the end you actually capture Wat Tambor. That's the point of the game.
But then he
free.
gets away.
Yes. Yeah. It's literally right after Attack of the Clones. I guess it takes place during between chapters of Wild Space, because that's the true sequel to Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Wild Space.
Can't believe Matt said it was good. I'm still wrapping my head around that one.
Did?
Yeah, he defends.
He said he likes Space.
Why?
Because
he won't defend Siege and Gambit, but he'll defend Wild Space. Who knows? It's like on the same tier of bad.
Siege and Gambit.
Siege and Gambit.
No, he says that the Bail Obi-Wan relationship is good.
It's all right, but
it shouldn't have been a novel. I can tell you that.
The Gambit duology, right? The Gambit duology is like the peak of like nothing actually happens, but like more happens in the Gambit duology than actually happens in Wild Space. It's just, who cares? Who cares enough about Ben and Organa to sit for them talking in a ship for 150 pages?
Because the worst part about Karen Miller's books. Sorry, we're getting off of this video games for a second.
That's fine. There's nothing else to talk about with the video games.
Worse than Denning, worse than K.W. Jeter's terrible trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I love dialogue. Okay, I love dialogue and stories. I gloss over everything else. I'll be honest. Action scenes, all that stuff, plot and character moments are the only thing I care about. The only thing. Okay, so if you want to have an entire book of dialogue, Traitor, basically just talking. I love that book. I love it. It's my favorite. It's my favorite Star Wars book, probably one of my favorite books of all time. But the issue with Karen Miller is her talking scenes don't have a point. They talk to talk, and it doesn't provide anything. Just so you can fill out page numbers. It's also Stealth and Siege. Friggin' Obi-Wan and Anakin talk so much to each other about their feelings and their problems. If that was something to actually
specifically,
continuously bicker. But they actually talk about things that they're feeling. And the issue with that is the entire point of their relationship is that they don't talk. Because if they talked, then the issues that arise wouldn't happen. It's because they don't talk to each other. Actually, they'll bicker, they'll banter, but they don't actually talk. And because of that, a lot of issues rise. But they talk so much about their feelings in that book, there should be no issues moving forward. But alas, so that's one of my biggest issues.
No, because she backpedals on that in Siege. Because
she has to.
Honestly, I think she wrote in that Anakin admits to Obi-Wan that he killed the Sand People. I think she wrote that in, and they said, Obi-Wan cannot know that. Obi-Wan cannot know that
until after Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, he finds out about it in Kenobi specifically, but like we need to. Well, he figures it out. He
figures it out. He actually finds out about it in the Life of Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, read those Life of books.
But even the talking thing. So it's not just like that them not talking creates conflict. It's also that they are such good friends that they have such a good understanding of each other that they don't need to talk as well.
Yeah. It's the opposite side of coin. But
because the scene from Revenge of the Sith, when Obi-Wan says, I've always known. I just don't talk about it because it makes Anakin happy. You make Anakin happy, and that made me happy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of great talking scenes, again, the Revenge of the Sith novelization, the chapter that's literally just Palpatine and Anakin talking, and Palpatine just trying to get
What do you
Anakin
want?
what do you want? It's 30 pages of just them in a room walking around talking, and it's some of the most engaging things you've ever read because you can see yourself and you know exactly what's going on. You know exactly what he's trying, and like you're just like, and again, the reveal when he finally does like reveal that he's the Sith, it has this immense payoff because the whole scene has been building to it, and you're enjoying every second of it. You don't want it to end almost because it's great dialogue, great.
Mhm.
Just
Or-
not when you can write dialogue.
How about when Dooku and Sidious are talking before the duel?
Yes.
On the invisible hand, and they lay out what Dooku thinks the plan is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, it serves a purpose because that is the build up to Dooku's betrayal of and like in that moment when like a Palpatine says kill him, and he's just like, oh, I've been played. That's like, set up payoff.
Mhm.
What is the payoff in Wild Space?
Literally
Nothing.
nothing. They talk to talk.
And then
That's it.
and then Bale like carries him on his back for a bit while they're on the Sith planet.
Oh, you forgot
Right.
the most important part. Die, Jedi, die, Jedi, die, Jedi. It just plays constantly. I hate it. I hated it.
Yeah.
And then Karen Miller only wants to ever reference Wild Space in Siege and Gambit.
Yeah.
And talk about what was the planet called again?
I don't even remember. I can't.
It has some stupid name.
Yeah.
It's not Exegol. Because that's
It's,
from Rise
no.
of Skywalker.
It-
I keep
It's in
wanting to say
Sith
El
space.
Segundo, but that's just
Oh.
that's just somewhere in Southern California.
I don't even care enough to look it up.
Segola. I think it's Segola.
Oh, that sounds right. That's all right.
It's a Sith
sounds-
planet that has never been brought up in the EU and
Yeah.
was never brought up.
Zagula.
What was it?
I looked it up. Zagula. Zigula.
Ugh, stupid.
That's never
Stupid.
mentioned anywhere else.
Do you remember at the end of Siege when Mace Windu is about to throw a temper tantrum? Because she can't write Mace Windu properly?
Oh yeah.
That would be the worst characterization of anyone in her books is Mace Windu. She does not get how to write him.
Yeah.
I didn't read anything Clone Wars after that terrible duology, and then I picked up Shatterpoint, and I'm like, it's night and day different.
Wait. According to the Essential Atlas, Segula isn't even in Sith space.
No.
Wow.
I guess that's why it's called Wild Space. But why would the Sith have a planet in Wild Space?
I don't know.
Because
You won't have an answer to it.
to do that. Also, why is Rex on the cover of that book?
I don't know. Why is
He's not even the main character. That's No Prisoners where he's the main character.
Count Dooku on the cover of Secession?
Yeah.
What is it with Clone Wars novels and putting the wrong characters on covers?
Oh, here's the thing. So I've been reading through Jedi Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And I read book 8, which is The Day of Reckoning, also known, according to one user on Goodreads is capitalist propaganda, which made me cackle. So someone said it was an anti-capitalism book. They clearly didn't read the following one, which is an anti-socialism book. So I don't know what you got going for. But
she's just critiquing everything.
Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are stuck in a cage above a bunch of village.
Right, yeah.
Not the pop group, the Village People, but like the people that killed the Frankenstein monster. There's a standing there with pitchforks and torches. That never happens in the book. It's like, and then I just read book 11 with the bounty hunter with the laser whip.
Yeah.
Never on a swoop fighting Obi-Wan.
Yeah, no.
I was looking forward to that the whole time. Oh, look, Pixie's joining us.
Adorable.
What a time to be alive. The cats, some flies got in here, so both my cats are in here trying to eat them.
Wonderful.
I know. She's gonna some shit. But what's a
hey, Noah's awake finally. Or he's been awake, but you live? I don't know. Are we?
I don't know, Noah.
German figured out.
Yeah. Mr. I'm too busy for anything.
He's always too busy. He's Noah. He's too busy sleeping and drawing really good art. Yeah.
And complaining about Gwendy, the Gwendy books by Stephen King. Of course, I complain about the Gwendy books too. So what am I? Should we segue into what we're reading?
Sure. Actually, before that, a bit of news. So, according to Joe, Supernatural Encounters is done.
Oh, sweet. Were you supposed to say that on here?
He's been saying it for like the last.
No, he's been saying
it publicly for like the last few days.
Oh, okay.
The only controversy now is that there might be copies of Supernatural Encounters at Legends Con, and so people are a little upset about that.
Like to buy?
I would assume so because I guess more news that I can say now. I didn't know if I can say this last time, but I can say it now because they also tweeted about it. Brian and I will be at Legends Con. We will have a table and we will be doing a panel both days.
Can I meet you?
But yeah, I mean, yes, that's why
we're
there.
Apart from the panel, I meant apart from the panel.
Apart from the panel. Yeah, we'll have the table. Just come to the Twin Suns table. I'm expecting there to be like 5 or 6 people just hanging out by the Twin Suns table, just talking.
I want to like get you lunch or something. So.
No, it's fine. So. Convention food's expensive, especially in Burbank.
Yeah,
still.
We remember getting convention food at Gen Con back in 2016, where we took you to that weird bar. And Dylan says, "Oh, I go here all the time."
Yeah, because at the time they were the only place that would. They were the only. So the thing with sports bars, right, is that they don't actually show. They only like have like the TV licenses for the live, for like the local sports. But this chain was like the only one at the time that actually had like all of like the packages. So you could just ask for like. You could ask for a game for a team, a home game for a team that was on the other side of the country, and they would put that game on for you. Which is great for me because I spent a lot of my life not in the same state as the teams I followed. So I could just be like, hey, can you put on this game for me? And they would be like, yeah, sure. And I would just sit there and watch the game.
This is also the same bar that I got so drunk at that I fell asleep on the floor at Gen Con.
You fell asleep multiple times. But anyway, back to what we were originally talking about and how we got to us being at Legends Con. So there's going to be, we were told that it's a convention center thing. There's no streaming. So There is filming available, but we won't have a live stream going. So we'll try to film some stuff. We're going to try to film the panels and put those up if at all possible. But the other is that we can't do a raffle at the and that's like a California gambling law, because the first if you didn't know, the first sentence in the Constitution of the state of California is no fun allowed in the state, right? So we have,
unless you're at you're on the res,
yes,
you can get around that.
But we will, if you're going, we will be accepting books as donation. We don't have a spot lined up for it because we don't know how many we're going to get. But if you have extra Legends books that you don't need, you can bring them to us and we'll find somewhere in Southern California. Yeah, no raffle. We will be accepting books, and anyone who donates a book, we still have some lanyards left over from the last celebration. So if you donate a book, you'll get a lanyard. And yeah, we'll think of other things to do, I guess. We'll also have bookmarks.
Donate Bounty Hunter Wars.
We have donated Bounty Hunter Wars before.
PC. No.
We donated Aftermath. We had someone at Celebration Chicago give us a copy of Aftermath, and that got thrown in with the rest of the donations.
No.
We had people donating to us the Delray Sampler, the little book that has like 1 or 2 chapters of like the 5 or 6 most recently published books for the con as like a teaser. We had like 10 different people donate those to us, and like they went in the to be donated pile. Some kid at the I forget the name of the Chicago hospital. A bunch of kids just got a book that was like 2 chapter excerpts of like 5 different Star Wars canon books. Aftermath, my favorite. It was only book 1 of Aftermath.
The only thing I know of Aftermath is what I read live with Noah, and that was scary enough.
Oh, you should have just watched my review.
I did watch your review. It's just funny.
I called Chuck Wendig a bunch of names that I won't repeat on.
You did.
It was a different time. It was a different time.
When haven't we called Chuck Wendig some sort of name? Actually, he hasn't come up a lot on the pod. He hasn't really come up a lot since he got fired from writing Star Wars, really.
What was the last thing he wrote? I think it was for that terrible A Certain Point of View book.
It was either that or the short story. The Darth Vader. Was it the Darth Vader comic?
Oh, he wrote a Darth Vader comic. That's right. He wrote an annual that contradicted a bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. What a shock. The new canon contradicts itself. What? But anyway, what are we reading? Dylan.
I am reading Shadow Games still. I haven't made any progress since the last time because I have not had time to actually sit down and read it.
Okay. Alex, what are you reading?
Well, I'm in between. I need to get started on Vector Prime. On my reread of that, I just finished all of Young Jedi Knights, so that was really fun and great again to do, and Junior Jedi Knights, of course. So that inspired me too, because me and Brendan are writing a short story that takes place in between Crystal Reef and Vector Prime, because I personally have some issues with Jason's characterization at the start of Vector Prime. So I wanted to address that in the story.
You mean you don't like Jason being a baby back bitch?
It's not even that. It's just how different it is from how he's portrayed in Young Jedi Knights, with only a 6-month gap to cover that change with no explanation. So I thought an explanation was warranted.
For Wickies. Vector Prime isn't even the worst of Jason being.
No, he's not being a baby.
Balance point. Balance
point.
Like pull your hair out. God damn it, Jason! You are a Jedi. Do your freaking job.
Right? Is there a part where
Balance Point though? It's one of my faves.
It is a good book. I was gonna say, isn't there a part in that book or somewhere else where he's like refusing to shoot in Han's ship, Millennium Falcon, and then Han's are like, "You gotta go do it. I don't give a crap what you say. Get in the gun. Do what you're told. You're the child. I'm the parent. Go." And I'm like, yes. Yell at him some more, please.
I mean, he gets over it, but it's like, in Vector Prime, it's kind of excusable because you don't know. But like by by balance point, it's like they're literally letting refugee ships go so that they can specifically target the planets that take them in. Like, come on, they are the most evil you could possibly imagine. Why are you not doing your job?
Yeah. I love Jason though. No matter what story it is, he's such a. My feelings on him go like this, and it's crazy. It's like a roller coaster because he starts off as the funny, quirky little kid in Young Jedi. It's like I vibe with that, and he's the whiny little loser. And then he's the whiny little loser for the first half of NGO, and he becomes my favorite character of NGO after Traitor.
Well, yeah, he has the best arc in New Jedi Order.
Yeah, so he's my favorite character in Star Wars. So,
does he? Yeah.
Yeah, he gets to talk to Sonoma Sakat. He gets to talk to a child version of his grandfather. That's a weird thing to explain to someone.
That's right. That does happen.
Yeah.
I actually
can't remember if that's in Final Prophecy or Unifying Force, but
I think that's in Final Prophecy. Actually, no, not a lot happens in Final Prophecy, except for
I think it's Unifying
They
Force.
uncover, because Final Prophecy is them uncovering like the conspiracy of spoilers, by the way, for New Jedi Order. The conspiracy that like they weren't the Vong had a bad omen to not invade the galaxy, and then Shimra or Onimi through Shimra like overthrew the previous war overlord to like take over anyway.
Yeah. That's the big revelation of Final Prophecy. So, you know what's the worst New Jedi Order story that isn't? Well, actually, I can't say that.
Force Heretic trilogy.
No, Boba Fett, a practical man.
See, that doesn't count. That's like saying
a short
Invasion
story.
That's like saying Invasion is the worst.
But all the other short stories in New Jedi Order are good.
So here's the thing. All the other short stories in New Jedi Order were written while New Jedi Order was still happening. Boba Fett, a Practical Man, has Invasion Syndrome, where it was written years afterwards, so that they had to throw it in, and like, but you read it and you know like nothing is going to come of this because, like with like Emissary of the Void or like Recovery or like Elysia, you're reading it, and because like the books that are going to come later haven't come out yet, they could use that as a building block to like show how those plot lines would eventually would go. But when you retroactively add another story and put it specifically with Boba Fett, a Practical Man, and Invasion,
Forgot.
Oh, yeah. The Mandalorian.
I was gonna mention that comment, but you put it up.
So for those listening, the Noah just put in chat: the Mandalorians are the third side of a two-sided blade with the Jedi and the Sith. In quotes, a practical man. I can't remember if that's an actual quote or not, but knowing Travis, I wouldn't be surprised.
Similar to that, I'm pretty sure. Now, the only thing I will say, just to play devil's advocate, is if she was explicitly talking about Old Republic Mandalorians prior to the research she happening there, because it kind of like only other world threat if it's not the Sith back in those days. But they're so irrelevant by the time of the prequels and the OT.
Don't tell Karen Travis that.
I know she'll get upset, but
she got a hard on for the Mandalorians.
I mean, Kreia said it explicitly in KOTOR too. She told Canderous, like, yeah, you used to be big and important, but you guys will never matter again. At least not in a huge, significant way. You'll do minor things that are important.
Oh yeah, like Dalla's bidding.
Mm-hmm.
That's their
or helping Han at the hours.
I was just thinking Fate of the Jedi. It was like the biggest middle finger to Karen Travis.
Yeah. Oh, Dalla is supporting like the slave industry. Yeah, she'll send Mandalorians over to like enforce the pro-slavery laws in like member worlds of the Galactic Alliance for some reason.
God. Yeah.
I'll never forget the time in when one of the Mandalorians, under Dollar's order, shot like a 12-year-old girl on like live TV essentially, and
Well,
it still took 2 books to depose her as chief of state.
Alex, did you read the Sword of the Jedi Hand of Thrawn 45 stuff?
I have not yet. I saw your review of it with Matt and everyone, and I plan on going through it. Brennan Quinlan Voss, who's an amazing guy, way better than me. You should have him on your podcast sometime.
I've been talking to him about being on here.
Good, because he deserves it way more than I do. But he is dreading it, but he's willing to do it with me since we run a podcast together. I said, look, these things get talked about a lot. This Hand of Thrawn gets mentioned around and around the internet. So why don't we, for the podcast, talk about it together? He's like, I really don't want to. I hate even the idea of it, because he's like really against the Hand of Thrawn trying to write anything post Crucible, because he just sees it as stupid. I'm like, I get that.
I'm for him not writing anything ever. So I don't like any of it. I think it's bad.
Yeah. The only things I've read on my own time, which I've not reviewed, are these duologies by him called Twilight of the Jedi, which is a conclusion to the Republic Commando books and a conclusion to Force on Knights. And from what I read of it, I enjoyed it, mainly because the Karen Travis isms are gone, because he writes Mandalorians basically the same as she does without all the preachiness. So it's like all the skranks of her, dividing all the errors of her. And then also a lot of Mandalorians die. So if you were pissed off at a lot of, those books, you kind of get some catharsis there. And also I had an issue with The Last Jedi, because you have this whole adventure for 4 books, and then it ends with the status quo. Jax Pavin's going to go back to Coruscant and keep helping the little guy, while Vader and Palpatine are like his neighbors. And I thought there's just no conclusion to his character. He's just still doing that. We don't know what happens to him. And so we get a conclusion there. So I thought that was nice. Of course, it's not canon. It doesn't count. But it was nice to get a what actually happened to him in the end story. Yeah, we also get to see Callista we get to see Callista turn into a robot thing, which was actually really fun to witness.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Do you want me to give you a minor spoiler to the second book?
To the Sword of the Jedi?
Yeah.
I don't care. Go ahead.
Oh, Jagged Phil gets horribly tortured and gets an eye ripped out.
Oh no, I remember you talked about it.
I did talk about it. Yeah. It was so shocking. I started laughing out loud because it was so ridiculous. Boba Fett's like, put out his eye.
Yeah.
They just gouge out his eye.
Yeah, I hear that Sword of the Jedi is awful, and one of the biggest things that makes me think I'm going to think it's awful too is the fact that you had Noah and Matt agreeing, which like almost never happens. So I was
with the third book, that was
so they were on the same page. Like it must be bad, but at the same time, those 2 books I read, those stories, I thought were okay. So I want to read all of it and see and just go through all the terrible and all the possible decent and just see what happens. And maybe Brendan's going to be pissed off the whole time, and I'm the one trying to be a little bit more optimistic. But I think it'll be a really funny review. So.
The third book is ungodly long. The villain, when the villain's finally revealed, you're just like, why now? Why is this happening? There's a lot of why.
I also hear they resurrect people you talked about.
Oh yeah.
Because he really hates Denning and he has to fix it. But even Noah, if he were to make a sequel, wouldn't do that.
No. Well, the whole thing is. Should we talk about this?
If you want to, I don't care.
Okay, so what Hand of Thrawn 45 establishes with Xenoma Sakat is that Xenoma Sakat can bring people back that Xenoma Sakat has interacted with. And Xenoma Sakat's ultimate goal is to bring back Anakin Skywalker. That does not happen in the book. What does happen is that Jason comes back.
No.
Also, Mara's a Force ghost in the third book, which...
to be the only thing I can, I guess, say is I believe his Sword of the Jedi thing was like the first thing he ever did, which is a terrible way to start off.
Well,
he's done stuff since then. Yeah.
It's enough material for one book.
Yeah.
Get rid of most of it. In fact, it's called Sword of the Jedi. Just have a Jaina solo book.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't
I
need
think
to be a trilogy.
I think that's when he doesn't do like these big story arcs, because what I hear Sword of Jedi is terrible. But if he's doing like a smaller scale thing, like the Republic Commando stuff and whatnot, I think it actually comes out decent because it doesn't affect the universe in like a large scale.
Yeah.
Like the Sword of the Jedi trilogy does, apparently.
Yeah. Also, the one Sith
Or
are in it, which I hate that. As I get older, the more I can't stand that Crate shows up in Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Just the more I think about it, the more it doesn't work. Well, the whole Mortis thing that Luke fights a hentai monster is kind of goofy and too Troy Denning for its own good.
Yeah. I mean, I do think I like Lovecraftian threats. My biggest issue with Fate is not the fact that she's the villain. It's the fact that she's the villain and she never feels that threatening. Like, I'll say this forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, because to me, like, when I've been hearing about Fate the Jedi and, like, this godlike entity that, like, went insane, like, I was thinking, like, okay, we're going to go bigger than NGO. Like, this is the one time you're allowed to, because now you have, like, a god, like, attacking people, right? Like, just the one time. Then I'll actually know what Trinity.
Troy's original plan was to have the one Sith play a role instead of the Lost Tribe.
Oh.
Which is so stupid.
Yes.
Well, the only way I could see that working is if it was they were not doing all this fighting like they did, like the Lost Tribe did. It was more like a Darth Plagueis novel where they're doing stuff.
Or if you have to do that, you have to kill Luke.
Yes.
Well, I mentioned that, but wouldn't some people still know about it regardless?
Yes,
because now it's mentioned that they've seen him on the
after the duel,
camera.
He has told the High Council, so all the Masters Council, which includes Jaina and all the others, and he's told Ben. Neither of which, because we know that the Fells and Cade Skywalker exist, right? Neither of which can die like in a reasonable amount of time to explain. Like, that's the problem with Luke meeting Crate, is that he now knows that there's a group of Sith that is out there that is prophesized to take over the galaxy, and he does nothing about it for 90 years.
So the only thing I can think of to make this work is Luke has a duel with. It doesn't have to be Crate. It just has to be. What's the caretaker's Darth
Warlock?
Yes, have a duel with him where it appears that they all die during it.
Yes, that's what I thought too.
Because Luke, it's clear Luke knew about them because that's why he's coming to Cade.
Yeah.
In Legacy, so like that's the only way that would make sense, and why Ben wouldn't be involved and that sort of thing. Yeah. Also, the Jedi need to be on Ossus.
Yeah, it's that, or you have a clone or somebody that is saying that they're, that their dog's Crate in like a suit.
My idea was
because I know Noah has an idea of like some obscure. I think it's actually a villain from Skywalker's or something like that, where the Atha Prime, Zeta Magnus character, where it would be they think that's Crate. They kill that guy, and then Crate still is doing stuff in the background for all these years, and they just they think they've taken care of the problem.
Well,
see, Crate in
the most of it.
Yeah, Crate and the One Sith do at some point need to, prior to the events of Legacy, need to make their presence known to the galaxy, because when they attack the temple on Ossus, they are a known entity, and they have been in an alliance with the Fel Empire for a while. So it's technically not that they didn't do anything for like 90 years. It's probably more like 80, 85 years that they didn't do anything. But it's still a large amount of time that you have to... Unless the Jedi are... You have to convince the Jedi for some reason that they're no longer a threat for them to make the decision that they did. Yeah. And for them to still be an entity that can affect
The one
galaxy.
good thing about this, though, is I do think it does lend, if the EU ever does get continued, a lot of interesting avenues to explore really interesting stories with this, because we're already just like spitballing, but you can make a really good story out of this. And I also thought about like ways you could do like little mini stories for novels that are like one-offs that aren't relevant to anything else, only connecting thread, because at the end of Fate of the Jedi, Luke's like, you need to go look for the Mortis dagger from the stupid TCW episode so we can defeat Abeloth once and for all. You know? So while you have multiple Jedi looking for that, you can have different stories happen while they're looking for that. Like I thought about having, what's his name? The guy from Jedi Academy, the guy you play as.
Jaden Core. I've been
Jaden Core.
thinking of writing a Jaden Core story.
Jaden Core and Mandar Zuma from Scourge. I thought, what if they teamed up? Because I thought they were two unique sort of like characters that had like unique adventures. So have them team up and like go on this one-off adventure while looking for the Mortis dagger together, but they get on a completely unrelated adventure.
And then that's also Jaden Core is potentially a one Sith sleeper agent, but we don't know for sure.
Oh, if he's a clone because of the whole.
No, he is. So he is the clone.
He is the
clone. But it's whether or not.
Yeah.
That's
confirmed. But it's whether or not. Yeah, because the original self dies, and then they use essence transfer to put his essence into the clone.
Okay, because those books confused me.
They also tried, like the brain, because the clone had like the brainwash propaganda in it, right? But they didn't know if like the essence transfer like took over the brainwash propaganda, like the sleeper agent part. So it's unsure whether or not like they can actually turn him into a sleeper agent or not. But like because the original plan was they would kill Jaden Core and then they would replace him with the clone, and the clone would be a one Sith agent. But then the original Jaden Core died, but essence transferred into the clone.
And they're also
weird.
The Jaden Core Jaden Core also doesn't know he's in the clone's body as well, because that happened. Like he was unconscious for that, and like someone else did like the transfer for him while he was unconscious and never told him.
But Crate tells Luke there are multiple agents in the Jedi Order.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be an interesting avenue to explore.
Well, yeah, you could also make stories about him trying to figure that all out, but also kind of hard to figure out like who those sleeper agents are, especially if the idea is that those agents don't know that they are, because then you can't.
Well, we only know about one sleeper agent, but it's like
does nothing about. Yeah.
Well, as far as we know, because we know stories, but yeah, I just think there's a lot of opportunities there, and then if when Abeloth comes back, and if it's another 9-book series or however many it is, she needs to actually be threatening and not be.
They should never do another 9-book series.
Yes. No, probably not another 9-book, but whatever.
A trilogy at most.
Trilogy. Yeah.
Yes.
Never. That was the worst idea they did twice.
Yeah.
Legacy of the Force would have been great if it was a trilogy written by Aaron Alston. Same with Fate of the Jedi.
Well, because they saw New Jedi Order and they were like, oh yeah, like long series. But like again, New Jedi Order had like a slow build to it.
It was an event.
Yeah, because again, Coruscant didn't fall to like the halfway point of that, and then it took them like another. They were like on the back foot of the war until like the fourth hardcover. I'm blanking on it, right? Destiny's Way, when they actually started to like retake the galaxy, it had like an arc to it. Whereas like they didn't have like, and again, the for the first few books, they're not even fighting like the Vong, they're fighting like the retort, like the vanguard of the Vong. That's like the Vong don't actually like come into the galaxy in force until like book 4 or 5, I believe.
Yeah,
they had like again. It's more of like they had the restraint to keep the early books lower stakes than the later books, which led to a longer series. Whereas in Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi, Jason falls to the dark side way too quickly. And then they get to the middle of the books where like, okay, Jason is definitely a bad guy. And they definitely know he's a bad guy. But we have to come up with convoluted plots and like reasons for why they just don't go after Jason yet, because we still have 3 or 4 books left to go in the series.
He did. I will play devil's advocate again, because I like Legacy of the Force and I don't like Fate of the Jedi. So I'll more easily accept criticism. But in all fairness, he accepted the Sith thing or whatever in the first book, but actually committing to that completely was not until book 5. So I feel like there was some development within those books before he became, I'm just emo villain now. I feel like there was some time devoted to actually showing that descent, to be fair. But it's fine. I know nobody likes it.
Now that I think about it, Fate of the Jedi did that power scaling better because there's not really an antagonist in the first book outside of Dala. The Lost Tribe don't come into it until book 2, and then Abeloth doesn't really make I guess technically Abeloth is influencing them from the beginning with the Forest Madness, but you don't really know that it's Abeloth until the halfway point.
That's another issue because the Lost Tribe aren't threatening, and neither is Abeloth. So you have
that's because they didn't kill anyone off. In New Jedi Order, multiple Bantam characters died. In Legacy of the Force, 2 High Council members died. In Fate of the Jedi, the only deaths are Cha Niathal, who no one cares about, and then all of the Jedi from the Shelter generation that you didn't even know about until they actually gave them names in this book, and then you're supposed to care about them. No Masters died, no previously established Jedi died. So, and then not only did no one dies, but again, I've talked about this a lot recently. The actual death count from the Fate of the Jedi series, when it comes to Jedi, is in the single digits.
Also, they do
sorry,
a bunch of characters that they don't do anything with.
Noah is right. Ken Hamner does kill himself stupidly.
Yeah.
But again, he doesn't die because of the actions of the antagonist. He dies because he's an idiot. That's also... Fate of the Jedi is also the book that Sava Sabatine eats a Sith.
That's kind of cool, though.
Well, she doesn't eat him. She just bites. She bites him to death.
Yeah,
Sava
that's kind of fun.
The worst.
I don't know. Ahsoka exists. I can't.
Oh,
I don't think I can.
Well,
I don't know. I never cared about Sava, but I never hated her. She's just kind of there.
She's a pet character. She's blatantly a pet character.
Sure, but she's not. She's just there. She just does things. I don't think there's enough of her to hate her. She just kind of does things and then F's off. You know. Whereas Ahsoka's a part of everything. She's the most important thing in all this.
Yeah, that's because the new canon made her more that than anything else.
Yeah. Well, even still, in Clone Wars, she's the most important character.
I do remember when the Jedi took over the government and declared Sava chief of state. And then they kept her as co-chief of state with one random politician that Abeloth consumed, and a guy from the New Republic, the Galactic Alliance military.
You know what? The one body value would be a good point if she was ever threatening to begin with. But anybody can take care of her in that series, so it really means nothing. It's probably the most disappointing part of the entire 9-book series is the fact that Abeloth sucks as a villain.
Abeloth sucks. The Lost Tribe sucks. Again, it's just simple power scaling. Have them kill someone.
Yeah.
I just love that my favorite part of Fate of the Jedi is when Luke is ill and he just kills a ton of Lost Tribe.
Yes. When he's Beyond Shadows, I think it is, when he's not ill, he's just exhausted from being in this meditative stance for a week straight. And then he comes out of it. And then he and Ben take on 24 Lost Tribe members and kill all but Vistara, basically.
Yeah.
Vistara and her master are the only ones that because they surrendered.
Her master's her father, right?
Was it her father?
I can't remember. Now.
I know he eventually died. Her master, and then her master eventually dies, but Vistara is still alive.
Vistara I liked. She was one of the parts of the book I did like.
Oh, and again, Denningisms. The one when she has a conversation, it's not her master because her master is still on Kesh, but he has communication with her, and she says, "Yeah, I'm under the care of Ben and of Luke."
He's finally arrived.
It's only that
Matt
for me.
And again, because Denning is writing, it's like, oh, you have a young male Jedi with you. Maybe you should use some of your feminine charms to try to turn him to the dark side.
Okay. Yes. You're right. However, again, I have to be fair, because I try to be fair with all this. Even with K.W. Jeter's terrible trilogy, I tried to be fair. I just couldn't because it was so bad. But sorry, I had to throw that in there. So, remember Darth Bane trilogy, which most people like. What does Zana do when she becomes a full-fledged Sith apprentice? What's one of the first things we see her do in the second?
Oh yeah, she's seducing someone.
Seducing, because that's something that Sith women do. It is
Right.
something that they use to their advantage that men Sith can't. So
You
I don't see that as a
remember
kid for a Sith
when
girl to do. And
I'm
it's
just
something
saying-
she doesn't even want to do. It's what her father wants her to do. It's a big part
I'm
of
just
the book.
saying this is the second time
Yes.
Troy Denning has written a female character attempt to seduce Ben at another older male character's behest.
Well, at
I'm
least
just
she's
saying it's
his
kind of
age.
weird it happened twice.
Well, yeah, Troy Denning also had a bug orgy.
Yes. There's no big
That's
defense of
important.
that. I don't have any defense of that other
I
than
don't have a defense for that. I have to explain that to my father when he gets to that. He's reading through all the EU books. He was very confused by Revan.
Oh.
He's had to read. He's rereading it. That's how confused he was.
No.
He got confused with Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void. He's reading in chronological order. I told him that's not the best idea.
Yeah.
But he did it anyway.
The only defense I have for Darkness when it comes to that stuff is that all this stuff about bug sex and all that, I legitimately, coming through it, did not notice most of it. It was like a blink and you miss it. The only reason I notice it now in hindsight is because of how much Noah has talked about it. Like me being in a server for 2 years.
Identity.
But like, it's honestly, it's not mentioned enough, right? It was super obvious to me that it was being a thing. Like they would say something weird about bugs, like, okay, that's weird, and I'd move on. Or maybe I was just more innocent and I've become less innocent over time. I don't know. But it just wasn't that obvious to me the first time through.
I just remember when Darkness came out, I'm like, oh, this is how we make a sequel to New Jedi Order?
Okay, so Maxwell's asking, is there anything Denningverse does better than New Jedi Order? Yes. Very briefly, actually putting someone competent in charge of the government with Wynn Dorvin. It's the only time post a Gaberson that someone that is not an idiot or a psychopath is put in charge of the New Republic / Galactic Alliance, and it happens in Denningverse.
I have to respect Boris Fela a bit, though. Like, I could say he's a douche, but then you get that scene in Star by Star, and that made me respect him so much. Well, he's love to hate, but that alone, that scene in Star by Star, made me go from, oh, you're just a piece of garbage, to like, you're not horrible. There are some good parts to you that I did not see before.
So Cal Olmos was okay.
Sucks. No,
he was okay until he wanted to just genocide the wrong with the bioweapon.
Yeah. No, you know what he is? You know what Cal Olmos is? He's a
and then he becomes a nothing character.
No, he's a nothing version of Borsk, where he's like too meek to actually say what he wants to say, but he's totally just as much of a dick. He just like holds it in. But like that's him. Like even in NGO, if you discount anything else with them, that literally is just him. So I don't mind that they just went further down that route when he got cocky in Legacy of the Force, and you just see his
just
true
nothing
colors.
in Legacy of the Force. He is the head of the Galactic Alliance and just lets it fall to Civil War and does nothing. He's such a non-player that he lets himself get arrested and then lets himself like die by like the same thing Boris Spalia did. Which again, Denning, why is it? You know, if I had a nickel for every time the person in charge of the New Republic / Galactic Alliance killed themselves with a proton bomb that would only go off when their heartbeat went away, I would have 2 nickels, which is really interesting that it happened twice.
Oh yeah, he kills himself by being impaled by Ben's lightsaber, right? Yeah.
Do you remember when Boris Falia got assaulted by a Nogri?
I remember when he got punched in the face by Booster. That was a good scene. I think that
I'm
was
trying to remember if
Izard's
that happened
revenge.
in Last Command. I think it does. He gets punched. He gets beaten up by a Nogri for insulting Leia. I'm pretty
And
sure
then,
that.
and then Izard's revenge, Booster gets to punch him in the face. And then even in that book, I had to be like, when I was reading that for a second time, I had to look at Borsk again and be like, okay, there's something for him. He's not just a dick. He's not just one note like he is in the Thrawn trilogy, because we get to see inside of his head. And there's a small little scene in there where, well, he gets punched by Booster, and in his head, I deserve that, and I respect him for doing so. But I'm also pissed off that he did that in front of other people. And so then he lets his like anger come up. But like it was just that initial acknowledging that he was being terrible and accepting that and accepting the fact that he did that. There's a little bit more to him than just a jerk. And I appreciated that. So, but
Anyway, let me say what I'm reading here. I have just finished Indiana Jones and the Spear of Destiny, which was not as good as I had hoped it would be.
Oh.
But we'll get to that when I review that. And I have just started Indiana Jones and the Sargasso Pirates. This is one of a couple comics that came out to promote Kingdom of the Crystal Skull that no one read. And I just finished Jedi Apprentice Book 11, The Deadly Hunter. That was really good. That was really good. It almost topped The Captive Temple, which I'm of the opinion is the best of Jedi Apprentice books. Dylan, have you read Jedi Apprentice at all?
I have not.
Oh,
Alex, have you read Jedi Apprentice?
Yes, I've read all of Jedi Apprentice and Jedi Quest.
Okay, can we just talk here about the opening of Captive Temple and how Yoda's nearly assassinated? That's how it begins, and the whole temple goes on lockdown.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan and Brooke Chun finally face off after like 6 books of waiting for that to happen.
It's a good book.
It's a good book.
It surprised me how much that series, because initially, everybody, or I remember Matt praising it in the reviews, but I was like, what can they really do? Like, nothing happens before episode 1. Like, it's just 1,000 years apiece, right? And so, what they managed to show in those young adult books was really interesting. It was nothing high stakes, really, but it was all really good little stories.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that do influence it in Jedi Apprentice. I mean, Xanatos, Palpatine references him at some point.
He does.
Can we talk about? We're gonna spoil a bunch of Jedi Apprentice here, so for this last part of the podcast, Dylan, do you care at all?
No, I'll probably forget all this.
Okay, so the big baddie for the first 8 books, although he's not in books 3 and 4, but his company is referenced in both of them. The big bad guy is Qui-Gon's first apprentice, Xanatos. And he's a dark Jedi, and he is just trying to ruin Qui-Gon. That's like his whole goal in life.
Yeah.
Is to ruin Qui-Gon. And so in the 8th book, the Day of Reckoning, this is the first time that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are back to being master and apprentice, because Obi-Wan left the Jedi Order at the end of the 5th book to fight, to govern a planet, and that goes horribly wrong for him. The 6th book. And so he goes back to the Jedi. So he and Qui-Gon go against the Council's wishes, and they go to take out Xanatos, only to come to a planet that Xanatos is like the financial benefactor of, and he's made it like a gambling planet, and everyone gambles and is addicted to spending money, which is kind of ridiculous. But like the leader of the planet is Brooke Chun's father.
Right.
And so, like, they've made
wrapped up
Qui-Gon
in
and
Jedi Quest.
Obi-Wan like outlaws, and they're trying to capture them. And then at the end, Xanatos says, "You won't save me, Qui-Gon," and he jumps into a vat of acid and kills himself.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god. That's horrific for a children's
A
book.
family picture.
A family picture. Well, this is after the previous book, Brooke Chun fell to his death and broke his neck.
Right.
And Obi-Wan's friend, I can't remember her name right now,
The
was killed in crossfire in the book.
Montgomery.
That's the thing. That's just the thing with kids and young adult books, is that the villain has to die by their own actions, not by like the heroes can't kill them.
No. But books 9 and 10 are kind of, they're fine. Well, book 9, the first half of it's terrible in my opinion. It's a bad version of The Giver. And then like things start to happen. The weird thing, I was talking to Dylan about this before going live. It's the planet is like, possibly they're all somewhat force sensitive. They've sheltered themselves away from the rest of the galaxy for so long, and their leaders are force sensitive to a certain extent. They can see the future, and they've sheltered themselves because their leaders are like, masked figures are going to invade our planet, and then it will be destroyed by a weapon.
Right.
And then Wikipedia just straight up says it's the Death Star, but that makes no sense. So I was talking to Noah about this, and Noah was like, it's it's a possible vision of the future.
Yeah.
I say that it's another super weapon that Palpatine used, because we know that he had so many of them. He could have just used the galaxy gun on this planet. I mean, they're all force sensitives. He would perceive them as a threat. Probably experiment on them.
Yeah, I could see him doing that.
I mean, we all know he has a son is Triclops,
and a grandson.
Darth Maul's his other son.
Oh,
thanks, Dave Filoni, for that one. Triclops was bad enough. I like Jedi Prince, but Triclops is a stretch.
A second eye of Palpatine, perhaps.
That was a plot point in New Jedi Order, though, when they were just like, "What if there's a second eye of Palpatine? Because there's 2 eyes. We can use that against the Vong." And then that went nowhere because there wasn't.
Unless the second eye appears.
Could have been World Devastators. Could have been the Sun Crusher. It could be anything, because this planet only shows up for this book. It's not in anything else.
Yeah.
And to say that it's the Death Star, when the Death Star's like history is pretty much set in stone at this point, it doesn't work. And I don't think the second Death Star ever left the Endor system.
Yeah.
I will admit that my knowledge of the second Death Star is pretty slim.
It sounds about right that it didn't move, though.
Except for IG-88 downloaded his consciousness into it.
Yeah, base story.
For reasons that are just beyond my understanding.
It is.
But,
us mere humans can't.
I don't know.
That's a good question, son of Luke. What if there was a second hand?
He
did have 2 hands. Isn't that the Empire of the Hand, though? Technically, which got built. Oh, another thing. Hold on. Another thing Denningverse did actually well. The Empire of the Hand had been set up in Bantam. They basically did nothing with it throughout all of New Jedi Order, except having the Chiss send a squadron of Clockrat to help in the war effort. And then by Fate of the Jedi, it's like an actual organization. They actually have a fleet, and they come in and like stop Dala, and then help Jag rig an election against both himself and Dala, so that Dala doesn't win, but also he's not chief of state anymore, so he could go off and be with his wife. and not run the Empire anymore, which causes more problems because Jag has to be the head of the Empire for the Fel dynasty to exist. But at least we saw the Empire of the Hand finally.
Well, I mean, we got a good 60 years before that matters. So long as he takes over the Empire sometime before that, we're fine.
Well, it has to be Jag.
Palpatine is the most wasted.
It has to be Jag. It can't be Jag's kids because Legacy specifically says Jag was the one that founded the Fel Empire. Yeah. So it has to be Jag.
I'm not saying it's his kids. I'm just saying that there's still time. He's still a young guy. He's only 30. There's still time for him to take over.
Well, they're in their 40s.
They're in their 40s. That's fair. They might be in their 40s by fate. I forget.
Yeah, but regardless, the only one that's spry at this point is Ben. Yeah. If we really want to go young, Chance.
True.
The greatest character ever. The fact
didn't take over until he was 60, right? He was 60. So Fel's got time to take over the Empire.
Yeah, because everyone's that's the problem with the post Jedi era. After a certain point, is these people are old.
Yeah.
There's actually a pretty decent scene in the first Sword of the Jedi fanfic where it's Han and Jaina talking on the Falcon. And it's Han's an old man.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the main character anymore. And it's like, this should have... And I'm reading this, and I'm like, this should have happened in Legacy of the Force. Legacy of the Force, Jaina, Jason, Ben should have been the primary focus of it. We don't need Luke, Leia, and Han anymore. Yes. They can be there. They can be side characters. But
I mean, Luke's the only one that could still be because freaking Yoda was 900 and was still kicking around doing.
Yoda's not a big character, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yoda's Yoda.
Yeah.
He does
he does do things. So
yeah, but
that's what even Yoda, right? Because technically Yoda is the most senior member of the Order, but Mace is the head of the Council.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
And Noah's completely right. They killed off most of the young generation without creating a new one. That's a big problem with because with focusing on it, right? You have this whole generation of Jedi, I call them the shelter generation, the ones that were too young to actually participate in the Yuuzhan Vong invasion, but are going to be the next generation. And we get almost none of them. We get a little bit of Valen and I forget her name, but the Bothan in Legacy of the Force. And then we get a whole bunch more of them in Fate of the Jedi, but they're not that recognizable. And the ones that you really get a sense of, they kill them all. You don't have the Jedi Academy trilogy to really with that first generation to really get to know them, and you don't have young and junior Jedi Knights to really establish them as characters. They're just kind of thrown in there, and again they're secondary, and you don't. I can't I had a list of them at one point, but I had to make a list of them because I can't remember their names off the top of my head. They're not memorable enough. I just know it's Valen and the Bothan and the Faline one, and I know their species. I don't know their names. That is something memorable characters.
That if the EU ever gets continued, needs to be rectified. There needs to be stories set after Crucible that focus on the next generation. Completely new characters.
Well, that was the point of Crucible, but the point is Crucible.
But even Crucible is all about the big three and Ben and Vistara.
Yeah,
that's all that's in it.
Well, I'm talking about moving
forward. It's the grand finale for them. That's how Troy Denning marketed this book. I remember the interviews for this. He's like, this is the end. We're going to have something called Sword of the Jedi, and this is the transition to Jaina and Ben taking over. But the thing is, Jaina's I'm not saying 40's old, but 40's a little old to become the main character.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's so frustrating to me. The New Jedi Order feels like a 19-book transition from the good times of Bantam to here's where we're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Then Dark Nest happened. And it didn't happen. We retconned New Jedi Order's meaning. and stuff. And then it's just like it's nostalgia before the nostalgia thing was popular. And Quality Autism says it best with except it wasn't LOL. Troy wanted to bring Luke, Han, Leia back for his Anzati trilogy, which he started talking about after he marketed Crucible, that he was going to do that.
All I'm saying is, in a hypothetical world where someday we do get Legends continued, I think one of the most important things is to stick to that initial idea, right? Because it most likely won't be Troy Denning, and it might be. I don't know.
Hopefully not Troy.
But
authors that have restraint.
Yeah,
sure.
I don't think Troy would.
Or if he's in it, he needs to be better restrained. Or if he's in it, he needs to be better restrained. But we definitely need to focus on. We need to have stories that have nothing to do with even Jaina or Ben. Have completely new young Jedi, and we go on adventures with them. So that way,
well
get
here
to know
we go.
New characters and follow up with them.
Alana and Chance.
True.
Perfect.
But Chance is really young at that point.
Yeah, Chance is like 2.
Well, I mean,
So
I guess
Alana's
Alana's 5.
room to go with Alana. But
have some aging up that Alana has to babysit Chance.
Yeah.
That could be hilarious. That could be a fun little short story there. Like, we got to do something. I'm fine with having dynasties of families, whatever, with Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's fine. But there's 2 things that really need to happen. One is we need to have younger characters taking over. That's what's great about Legacy is that Cade isn't old. He's young. Like, the characters in that are young for the most part. The other thing we need to do is we need to conclude all these we have all these characters that have not been, no one's done anything with them since New Jedi Order, pretty much. You got Kip Durrance.
Yes. Oh my god. Well, first off, I need a book. Sorry, I need a book with him during Bantam era. I love him. He's my favorite. I need a story with him set after Jedi Academy because we have that little short story, and that's phenomenal. And then he just pops up for a second in Young Jedi Knights, and then he's like a big factor in New Jedi Order. Apologize for interrupting.
No, you're fine.
Love him. I love him. I need more of him. So, yeah, that's all.
Something that Kyle Katarn. We need to do something with Kyle Katarn. Granted, these characters are old at this point.
True.
The thing I like about Cross Current and Riptide, it's Jaden Core. Like, that's so wild to me that Paulus Kemp did that. We need more Jaden Core. We need.
He'd still be on the older side though, wouldn't he?
Yeah, because he's in his. He was like the second class for Jedi Academy. He was Luke's second or third class. He's in between. He's in between the Jedi Academy trilogy, the first class, and Jaina and Jason.
To be fair to all the old people moving forward, and we also have Dooku, who was pushing 8 and still kicking around doing stuff. So it's certainly possible for other people to kick around doing stuff.
We also need more.
Yes, Mandrazuma does. Sorry, I saw Noah's comment.
We also need more of like the transitioning and changing of the guard within the council, because the council right now, as it stands, is basically all like the members of the first class, Jaina, and then what's her name?
Saba Sabatine?
No, not Saba. The diversity hire that Kent added to the council as a yes woman, and then turned on her. That again, we'd never know. But like, where's Techley? Where's Zek? Where is like the previously established Jedi that would like naturally take up council member positions?
Well, that's the beginning of Sword of the Jedi fanfic. Is
Braxil? Thank you, Marcel.
Noah makes an excellent point about the Aranda siblings from Galaxy of Fear, that they're confirmed Jedi. So what are they up to now?
Well, we still don't have an answer of what Strain and Kurina T are doing, because the last we saw them was at Mara's funeral.
True.
Yeah.
Who are, again, first-class members.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good idea to focus on the younger generation. We should get more stories with those older generations that aren't as old as Luke and Leia. But, I think Alana's a good choice. I know Noah before doing fan fictions called like Jedi Princess, a play on Jedi Prince with Ken Palpatine raising or training Alana or whatever story we get with Alana. We definitely should have Alana stories. We definitely should have Chance stories later on when he's not so little. And also we need just completely new characters that have not been made before. Maybe even bring in some new writers, that can bring in their own new original characters, introduce them into the universe so they can become big players moving forward.
And yeah, that's another one, Son of Luke. When does Perkrook and what's her name? The tree one that's also from like the Clone Wars.
Oh god.
I still haven't read Brennan's fan fiction because I've been waiting to read it to where it would have popped up in the timeline of how he set it up. But I hope he kills off Finn Galfredian in his fan fiction. I think that'd be really funny. But I don't know what he does because I haven't read it.
We need to kill all of the characters off.
That's really what Hand of Thrawn 45 did.
Still alive. Well, he didn't. Well, there's still some that are in Sword of the Jedi.
Oh, fair.
Banku.
Oh.
It's Sword of the Jedi.
Oh, that's because in the fan fiction, I think. No, that was written first. Never mind. Forget I said anything.
Yes.
No, Abeloth should not be a part of anything doing with Alana.
Yeah, this is the thing. They've written themselves in the hole that they know exactly how to kill Abeloth now.
But they have to find the thing, which is the thing.
Well, yes, but like Abeloth is an incredible threat. That's left with Abeloth is finding the dagger and then killing her with the dagger.
That's the thing too.
If they anything more with her,
well, they have to find some way to make her be a threat because how she was handling Fate of the Jedi was awful. So whatever.
I don't think you can do that.
I'm sure there's some way that she could gain power by doing something. They need to figure out some way so that she can actually be threatening before she gets taken out. Because otherwise, why even make a series with her if she's just gonna? Yeah. So she's got to be. There's something has to happen where she's able to, maybe not acquire more power because it sounds anime-like, but something where it's not a walk in the park to just take her out. She has to actually be threatening.
I do agree, Marcel. That is a huge issue. And then, see, I thought the best way of resolving that issue is to have them come into the scene after Luke is no longer the head of the Order. Mm-hmm. And because, again, the current Masters Council, as it stands right now, is not capable of functioning without Luke. And they could be that guiding hand that helps Ben take over the Order, wrangle the rest of the Masters. That was how I would have done it. But that also means killing Luke early, which I don't want to kill Luke early.
Does he have to die, or can he just take a backseat and let these older Jedi?
Well, I think he takes a backseat for a while. I do think he's definitely dead by legacy. By the events of Legacy.
By legacy, but
yeah, I don't. I want Luke to be kicking around for another 20+ years after Crucible, at least, and then just take a backseat, take a Yoda stance where he is not the head. He is still around. He is still a part of the Order, but he is not on the front lines anymore. He is delegating the tasks of running the Order to other people and doing all of the world savings,
So, this is how I see it. I say Ben finds Kukruk. Also, another thing that isn't wrapped up that I had an idea about for Post Jedi. Whatever happened to the clone of Starkiller?
We need a conclusion. I need a Force Unleashed 3. I don't need.
I don't think we need a Force Unleashed 3. I think we could do something where it's post Jedi. There's like a crazed Starkiller, because we know that cloning Force sensitives leads to all sorts of issues.
But he's still good at the end of 2.
Well, but he has issues that he doesn't know who he is. I say he just goes full insane.
Well, the easy solution is that Boba Fett has the hit on him, so Boba Fett eventually just kills him.
Didn't he give up? Didn't he say like I don't care anymore?
No, he said like no. It was like another day because like it was like he had him as crosshairs in the reunion when like they had their reunion, and he's just like, no, I'm not going to do this now. So he was going to kill him. Like that's how I would take Starkiller out of the equation. Of course, you also have to deal with the problem of how does Vader escape, which I guess isn't really a problem. I don't know how they captured Vader in the first place. How did you capture Darth?
Because
I
think it to happen.
Well, yeah. Well, I think that was the idea. They would have set that up for the next game that he was planning that, and there was going to be some resolution to that, but we don't have anything because never happened.
Their idea for Force Unleashed 3, I thought was stupid. Is the co-op game with Star Wars and Vader.
But I'm still sure the story would have been that he planned to get captured for whatever reason that we didn't know about. Because that's what it seemed like. Because it didn't seem like a victory at the end of 2. It seemed like, oh, this feels kind of like, not ominous, but like, this isn't right.
Well,
like,
yeah, especially with Slave One's tracking them.
And then there's also all the continuity issues that arise inevitably when you put Force-sensitive and Jedi-aligned characters in the Rebellion era, or in the pre-Rebellion era prior to Luke coming out, and putting, which I don't know how you fix that.
To die. I think he has to die before Episode 4.
Starkiller and Ramkota have to die.
Ramkota would clearly die before Episode 4.
Yeah.
Well, I say Starkiller gets captured and he's just experimented on. We've seen that before, you know.
And then also, because of the cloning thing, you also have the issue of you have to deal with all of the clones of him too.
Well, they're mostly dead. Boba Fett killed all of them.
Did Boba Fett kill them all?
In the comic, yeah. That's the difference of the comic. The comic adds he torched all of them, and he also torched all of his clones as well. He's the last one with the Jango Fett genes. Well, until Karen Traviss decided that people that there were Jango Fett clones that survived.
No, Maxwell. Boba Fett was hunting the Starkiller clone, not Vader.
No.
So my thought was that Boba Fett kills the Starkiller clone, and that's how he dies.
Yeah, it's possible. Boba Fett's killed Jedi. Boba Fett's nearly killed a lot of Jedi because Boba Fett always ends up being a boss in a Star Wars game. I mean, he's a boss in Jedi Outcast. He's a boss in Jedi Academy.
That's true. Yeah, Boba kind of sucks.
No, Boba Fett
I'm kidding.
doesn't have the Force. He does very well. Remember, Jango Fett headbutted a Jedi to death in Open Seasons. It was the greatest thing in there. He headbutted a Jedi to death.
I prefer Jango over Boba.
No, he didn't.
I'm going to be honest. It was a bit of a hot
Okay, I just recently saw those panels. He didn't headbutt him to death. He headbutted him, was caused a nosebleed, and then he garroted him afterwards.
Oh. I still think headbutting to death. He could do it. He could headbutt someone to death. He could headbutt a Jedi to death.
See, the more egregious one is when he kills Coleman Trevor in Attack of the Clones, who, simply because of how the way lightsaber forms work, and that he specifically had mastered Surisu and was a High Council member, being that he was fairly combat capable. Surisu being the one that was specifically invented to be able to deflect and counter blaster fire, and he gets killed. He gets gunned down after blocking only one of the 4 shots that are shot at him.
This is how I interpreted that, is that Dooku used some sort of Sith power to kind of stun him. Because I agree, that doesn't make any sense, period. And then he gets killed by Mace Windu in the dumbest way possible.
So there is a okay, if you I forget who pointed this out, but if you watch the fight closely, when he gets like trampled over by like it destroys the jetpack, and like he at one point tries to like use the wrist gauntlet to like launch the missile at Mace Windu, but it fails, and then he has no backup plan. Is how that happens.
Yeah, it's just that it's horribly choreographed. Like all Samuel L. Jackson's fights are in the prequels. But anyway, I think we're about wrapped up here.
Yeah, we've been going for 2 hours and 10 minutes, and 40 minutes of those was the actual topic of the podcast. Pretty typical for Legends, honestly.
Oh yeah, we had some good talks. So anyway, have a good one, everyone. Thanks for joining us. See you later.